Thank you. Yes, thank you. It's really great to be back after 6 years, 2019. If you remember, I was talking a lot in that presentation about cognitive neuroscience and artificial intelligence, and especially the combination between computers and the brain, direct connections. I'm just curious, sorry, just to satisfy my curiosity, could you raise hands if you were there 9 years ago? 6 years ago, excuse me, 2019. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask any examination question to check. Okay, that's quite a lot. That's very good. So I talked about neurotechnology, and maybe you remember this one. He had a visor, he was colorblind, a visor that translated colors into sound, so he would hear color. And one of the things that I thought was most remarkable was that he at some point started identifying so much, he actually said, and was starting to dream in colors, that he wanted this visor on his passport, which you see in the left upper corner, that he really felt that this was a part of him. It was no longer a tool that he was using. No, he melted with it, so to speak. Another thing that I mentioned was deep brain stimulation. Maybe you remember this case. So this is for suicidal depression. People have tried everything, nothing works. And through deep brain stimulation, it actually improves their mood and they feel better. And for this person, it was the difference of day and life. And I spoke afterwards with several people, and of course I talk with other people about this neurotechnology, and they say, on the one hand, it's beautiful that you can have this technology to help with such very serious afflictions, you know, suicidal depression, that's about as serious as it gets. At the same time, it's also scary. We're actually artificially elevating mood to the finest levels of detail. How manipulatable could we become through such technology? These are questions. So the talk then was very much about authenticity. How to be authentic in a world where neurotechnology actually melts with us and influences the core, basically, of who we are. I want to talk again about authenticity, but now in relation to artificial intelligence. But before I go there, I want to give you a really quick update on what happened in neurotechnology over the last 6 years. And the main development is very simply that it's going to the market. It's going to the consumers. As we say, it's going to the streets. It's no longer about implants and going through the skull, etc. No, it becomes wearable, it becomes fashionable, it's going to connect to your smartphones, and your brain data and the apps are going to be in combination. Actually, I have a colleague who suggests that very soon, you know, these kids that go with these fast thumbs while typing on their smartphones, and I tease my students that I say, look, your kids are going to laugh at you when they see video clips of you typing, because they will think it's straight in. It's no longer going to be typed. You have your thought, and it will be decoded. And let me just show what happened, because the kind of research that I was involved in 6-7 years ago required these kind of, sort of swimming caps. And it took half an hour at least. You needed gel. It took hours to wash it off. Actually, you only got rid of it the very next day, no matter how often you washed it. So it took a long time. You had to keep your head still. It was very vulnerable. These days, it looks like this. I'm an ethical advisor for a German company on neurotechnology, Sander Labs. And you can see these things, you know, they get on your head within a few minutes. There's no gel or hardly any. No problem with washing, and you get recorded and you can wear it for hours. So I kept it on during the meeting just to see how how the experience was. And at some point I got bored with the meeting, but not with wearing the equipment. It's really a total different kind of experience. And there's an application that I want to tell you about that I think is really interesting. It's called passive BCI. Basically what the machine does is like when you have a grid, such as you see here, it is, you get a target location, and you know which corner you want the cursor to move to. And then what the system does, it sends probes by moving the cursor in various directions. And when it moves away from your target location, say in the opposite direction, your brain automatically, you can't help it, produces an error-related negativity signal. That's a signal that you can pick up with EEG. And after a couple of probes, the system starts learning what your goals are, or alternatively, what your preferences are. Now, this is a very basic setup as a proof of principle. But you can imagine that through brain signal recording that you can't control, that you're not even aware of that you're producing it, this leads to tapping into your preferences. That can be very useful. It can also be a challenge. And so what we see is that the commercial interest in this kind of neurotechnology is growing immensely. It's not just Elon Musk with his Neuralink. It's basically everybody working in AI now is trying to see how they can add neurotechnology on to all the data that they already have about you. So brain data are becoming a commodity. And this is sometimes referred to as neurocapitalism. The idea that in addition to all the other data that we collect about you, we can now also start collecting your neural data, reflecting your preferences, and use that, for example, for neuromarketing. And to be perfectly honest, in combination with neurostimulation, with brain stimulation, this was one of the most scary articles I saw in recent years. Dream marketing. So we can start advertising Coca-Cola while you're sleeping, so that you dream about it and you wake up with a certain thirst in the morning. So these kind of things are really happening now. It's not yet on the market, but you're sort of in the preparation phase. It will happen very soon. So it's for that reason that one of my main activities over the last 6 years was on neurorights. What kind of amendments, additions, changes in standard human rights do we need in order to enable this technology to grow as long as it is useful, but also to stop it, to regulate it at the moments it's really, threatening our mental privacy or our freedom of thought. A very, very important topic. I just wanted, as an update for 6 years after to inform you about this, but now I will go to AI, artificial intelligence, and how it might affect our authentic growth, our personal development, let's say. Increasingly, we operate, whether it's in education, whether it's in social life, or whether it's professionally, with a lot of technology that surrounds us and that supports us. It's convenient, it's most of the time reasonably effective, but it changes in all kinds of ways who we are. And it's good to take a look at this. So AI, of course, changed. So I'm very old, as you can see, and I started somewhere here-ish. I wrote my first computer programs on the Commodore 64. I don't know if anyone remembers the Commodore 64. It had cassette tape as a memory. My students don't even know anymore what cassette tapes are. And you couldn't do anything much with it, but it was interesting enough to explore. And I, in those days, and AI people in those days, had to write the algorithms themselves. So they had to write sort of the recipe that the computer then could use to perform tasks. And so you really had to understand the task that had to be performed well. And you, as a human being, had to be smart. I wasn't so good at it, to be perfectly honest, but I tried. You had to be smart in order to generate a recipe that would work. So we understood the algorithm, we understood what the computer was doing very well, because we basically created the smartness ourselves. These days, with deep learning, neural networks, machine learning, we don't have to write the algorithms ourselves anymore. That has changed. We give examples. This is the input, that's the output we want. You figure it out, you being the machine. That's of course very convenient, very helpful, but it also makes the distance between us and understanding what the system is doing or how it is doing it incredibly much larger. We're less informed about how exactly the machine, through a learning process, understands the solution, comes up with a solution, generates the answer. Now, when things go well, that's fine. When things go wrong, there's some explaining to do. There's the issue of accountability. So there's now a whole area of AI that's called explainable AI, XAI, where people work in order to make such deep learning neural networks understandable for us human beings in the kind of terminology that we can understand, but are always behind, of course. The developments go faster. Just to show you a little bit, I'm going to show you a little picture of Pim Haselager. He just got the Nobel Prize last year for AlphaFold. Maybe you heard about this in chemistry, because the program was really excellent in discovering how proteins fold in a three-dimensional structure, which is very important for the biological functioning. And it was through AlphaFold, developed by Pim Haselager and his team, that this progress was actually made. And I remember colleagues already saying if a human would discover that, it would be a Nobel Prize worthy. And it turned out to be, except that not AlphaFold got the prize. Wouldn't be happy with it because it doesn't feel much. But Pim Haselager got it. He's not talking about this now. I'm showing an example about learning to play computer games. So in the top right, you see Space Invaders. You remember these old Atari computer games? I already told you, I'm old. I remember playing these, and these yellow creatures, they're the Space Invaders. They come down, they shoot at you, you have 3 lives. You can move to the right and the left with the blue cursor, and you can shoot back, etc. And in the beginning, this learning network, this deep learning AI, doesn't understand how to play the game, but it sees the score and it looks at it, and then it starts getting the hang of it. And what happens then, I let Pim explain to you in a clip that takes about 2 minutes.
Different Atari games. So I'm just going to run this video now, this 1-minute video. This is Space Invaders, the most iconic game probably on Atari. And this first minute, this is before the first time the AI has ever seen this data stream. So don't forget, it doesn't know what it's playing, it doesn't know what it's controlling, and you can see it's actually losing its 3 lives. It's controlling the rocket here at the bottom of the screen, and it's losing its 3 lives immediately because it doesn't know what it's doing. But after you leave it playing overnight on a single GPU machine, you come back the next day, and now it's superhuman at the game. It's learned for itself through experience how to play. So you can see now every single shot it fires hits something. It can't be killed anymore. It's worked out that the pink mothership that comes across the top of the screen in a second is worth the most number of points. And it does these amazingly accurate shots to do that. And you can, if those of you remember Space Invaders, as there's less of them on the screen, they go faster. And just watch the last shot that it does, the rocket does. There's this predictive shot to hit the last Space Invader. So you can see how perfectly it sort of modeled the game world and that data stream. So accurately, it can predict ahead of time what is going to happen, just from the pixels on the screen. So this is a second video. It's my favorite video, actually. So this is a game of Breakout. And there's more gradations here of the agent getting better, the system getting better. So this is after 100 games. So just 100 games. And you can see, again here, the system is pretty terrible. But you can probably convince yourself that maybe it's starting to get the hang of the fact that it should move the bat towards the ball. Now this is after 300 games. So it's now hitting the ball back pretty consistently. And it's almost never missing. So it's about as good as the best humans can be at this game. And then we thought, that's pretty cool. But what would happen if we just left the machine playing the game for a couple more 100 games? And this amazing thing happened. What happened was it discovered the optimal strategy was to dig a tunnel around the left-hand side here and then send the ball, with this unbelievable accuracy round the back. So that's really cool because actually the brilliant programmers and researchers who are on this program, they're brilliant at programming and coming up with algorithms, but they're not so good at playing Atari. So they didn't actually know that strategy for themselves. So this is something that their own creation taught them.
Yeah, and that final sentence, this is something that their own creation taught them, is something that we see much more often these days. That AI comes up with solutions that we think, oh my goodness, why didn't I think of this myself? And of course, in this particular case, we sort of understand why it works, right? You dig a tunnel and you get all these free bonus points because it sort of bounces back and forth on the top. But when the topic becomes more abstract, more complex, we can maybe see that it works, but it's not so clear anymore to us why it works. And that's interesting. So we have autonomous, adaptive systems that help us to do things, but how they learn the solution, how they write their own algorithms is not always completely clear to us. And we can see that the solutions they come up with seem to work, but exactly why it works is also becoming less and less clear. So there is a big challenge here for keeping human responsibility and human accountability. If you're in the trust business, I always say that for companies using AI increasingly, this will be a point of differentiation. You separate yourself from the competition not by using AI, everybody's using AI. You're differentiating yourself by how you control it, by how you keep it trustworthy, how you keep it explainable, how you implement effective human oversight. I will come back to that in a second. Now, of course, this is used in all kinds of technologies. Generative AI. It's not just for computer games, it's for art. And a development that I find particularly interesting, but also challenging in a way, is creating art. On the basis of all the data we have, you can create a new role for Marilyn Monroe in color. With AI, this is totally possible. No problem there whatsoever. In relation to music, it's easy to have a singer sing a song that he never sung in his life. I just give you a small clip of Frank Sinatra.
Okay, Bohemian Rhapsody, take one. Really? What's an ode? Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see.
I'm a big fan of Sinatra, well, his singing, to be perfectly honest. For instance, the way he sort of thinly puts on the last word, in C, and then full style, brings it out, is vintage Sinatra. You can. So there's now this issue about digital legacy after death. I was once in a radio program where the interviewer had recreated his mother, who died 20 years ago, so that he could talk with her about the 2 kids that he had in the meantime, of course, which he never knew anything about, and then hear her response, and he was broadcasting that on the radio. Such applications make me a little bit worried, to be perfectly honest. If not to use a word like disrespectful. I mean, what are the limits that you can do with people and their digital legacy after they died? We have to think about such things. Another thing is, of course, influencers. This is Aitana Lopez. She makes 11,000 per month by advertising, and she's not real. She's an AI. The idea of having such influencers for young people, to influence their buying behavior in the shampoo, etc., is going to grow, and it's going to be organized by AI avatars pretty soon entirely, because they work 24/7 and they don't have their own opinion. There's no integrity there. It's all moldable to the way you want it. So that's something that's going to influence our buying behavior to a large extent. So now I want to go to how we, let's say, people in general use AI already. And this is going very fast. So this is in 2024. And you see, for example, technical assistance and troubleshooting, content creation and editing, personal and professional support. It's very clear that a lot of people are already using AI. I give talks twice per week these days. And when I ask Hans whether I do mental health care audiences, big companies like ASML or you name it, there's always at least 1/3 to a half that is already using AI. And if they don't use it professionally in virtue what their employer gives to them to access, they use it at home. And sometimes also for work, which is a big challenge. ASML has, for instance, a strong policy, and I believe you now do too, which I think is really wise, that you don't have people working at home with company secrets, giving prompts to chatbots, etc. But these things are changing very fast. And if you think about authentic development, authentic growth, how we are as a person, as an individual, and how we develop ourselves amidst these technologies, there was an interesting change over the last year. So what happened was that personal support went from third place with 17% to 31%. And if you zoom in, you ask, okay, what kind of questions are being raised to ChatGPTs, in its various forms? It's actually therapy and companionship. It's about organizing your life, finding purpose. That's quite something, right? I mean, if you really think about personal growth and you outsource a significant part of that to ChatGPT or other AI agents, then that is really interesting. So it's good to take a step back and think again about what these large language models on which ChatGPTs, etc., are based, are actually doing. I'm sure you know, but I just want to refresh your memory. So you have these deep learning neural networks that basically transform input into output. And linguistically, when it's about language models, what they produce is basically a prediction of the word in the sentence on the basis of the words that happened before and the words that were in the conversation before. And these days, in the conversations you had, the longer you use GPT, the more data they have of you, the more knowledge about the kind of questions. If you personalize this, it will stay in there, and it will make them better in predicting what the next word is going to be. Now, it's important to realize that this has nothing to do with meaning. It's based on word frequency. You may remember, these little games. If I say high, you say low. If I say pepper, you say salt. These are word frequency kind of responses. Has nothing to do with a particular meaning, except in rare circumstances. This is what these kind of systems do all the time. They're correlation machines. That's a fundamental difference with human beings. For us, it starts with an communicative intent. I want to say something to you. I try to express my meaning, my intended meaning, into words as accurately as I can. And then the words come out. For AI, meaning doesn't exist. It's only word frequencies. And it doesn't matter whether it's language or whether it's pixels. Clusters of pixels tend to correlate with other clusters. Like in the face, for example, if you see a spot here, you will implement the spot there, because normally eyes are come in pairs. And that's how they make their output. That's how they generate their output. Understanding what it is about doesn't come into play. So for me, this realization started in 2020, the year after, so to speak. There was before Tallinn and after Tallinn in my life. And I read this article in The Guardian. A robot wrote this entire article, "Are you scared yet human?" This was GPT-3, long ago. And, it goes down to the seller, a very long text. And I read it, I thought, this is great. This is a wonderful text. The editor said, look, we did a little bit of editing, but actually less than with human writers. So the text was more complete, was of a better quality already to start with. At the same time, I was looking around. I was giving a class on AI and how things changed for my students. I give classes on the societal impact of AI. And I found the philosopher AI. And so I put in some questions out of the questions that I raised to my students. They have to write an essay to pass my course. And the answers were perfect. Well, perfect, but better than the average student, by far, to be really honest. So I thought, okay, this is gone. By the time I find such things, my students already found it. That's how these things go in life. And what's worse, these students tell other students what they found, but not me. I'm the teacher. I've been a student myself. I was exactly the same. So I'm not blaming them. I mean, this is how it works. So for that course that we already started, I decided then and there to change from written essays to oral exams. We have 300 students in that course, so that was not an easy thing to manage. But I felt we had to, because in oral exams, you can ask the most deadly question there is. And the most deadly question there is, what do you mean? And then they're left on their own devices. That's cognition, that's thinking. What do you mean? Why do you defend this position? Why do you disagree with that? What do you mean? If you cannot, in a conversation, answer that question, you have a real problem. So we're actually very happy now with these oral exams, and I find this one of the big ironies of AI, that because of all this technology, we go back to the origin. You know, the early Greek philosophers basically were walking around and talking to each other, questions and answers. And I'm now in the 21st century, amidst AI, at an AI educational program, doing exactly the same, having conversations. Isn't that beautiful in a way? I tend to see the beauty of that. And there was this talk this morning, which I very much resonated with, about drawing. And I'm a terrible drawer myself, you don't want to see it. But there was a very deep remark that I really liked, like the hand reveals the emotions of the heart that clarifies the head. I think that that's very true. And that amidst all this technology, it is so useful to keep those human capacities at a certain level. If you talk about authentic growth, authentic development, that's what we need to incorporate. Doesn't mean you cannot use AI. It's a useful tool, of course you can. But you need to know when you use it, why you use it, and how you use it. There's more to it. This is something that is getting increasing interest, so I want to show you a discussion. I had a brief conversation with the chatbot. Prize winning was at the same time, and I swear I didn't change anything. This is really what happened. I had a conversation. Hello. Hi there, as I said, Cookie, the chatbot, prize-winning chatbot. How are you? Not so good. I lied. I wanted to have a small conversation. And okay, my students like to talk about their state of mind and mental health with chatbots. So I thought, okay, I'm doing a kind of depressed type of conversation. Not so good. What's wrong? Cookie asked. Well, I said, I feel useless. And then Cookie replied, what's that feeling like? I'm sure that's not true. There must be something you're good at. I thought, oh, that's a good answer. You know, what's that feeling like? Can you tell me more? Helping me in the right direction. There must be something you're good at. You know, what can you mention? So, yeah, good point for Cookie. Well done. So I said, I used to play guitar. And she says, now you do not do that anymore. No, I lied. I lost control over my fingers. To which Cookie says, have you tried looking on a hand? That's probably the best place to find fingers. Say what? You know, come again? I mean, this is not a bad answer. This is not a disinterested answer. This is not an aggressive answer. This is alien. This is off the map. This is completely outside of everything. And that's the point. If you don't have access to meaning as an AI system, and all you have is correlation, then this is a perfect answer. There's a huge correlation between sentences about hands and sentences about fingers. So Cookie doesn't understand the difference between this answer and that one, but we do. Having such a weakness analysis of AI that it's purely correlation-based is crucial for a responsible use of it. And there are many more of these examples. And I like these failures of AI, not to make AI ridiculous, although it doesn't hurt. It's so popular and it's so powerful, you know, nothing wrong with making fun of AI every once in a while. But the point for me of these examples is that it shows the underlying mechanism. It's like in an instance, you suddenly get to see something about how the AI works. It's like you're looking under the hood of a car, you see the engine, you see what makes it tick. And understanding that is going to be a crucial component, I think, of responsible, authentic growth and of a company that uses AI. We need all to understand the strengths, the particular strengths and weaknesses of the AI tools we work with. So this is also a nice one. This is ChatGPT 4.5, not too old. Create a picture of an empty room with absolutely no elephant in it. Here's your requested image of an empty room with absolutely no elephant in it. This is another one. It's also interesting. help me with the puzzle. A man and a goat are on one side of the river, they have a boat. How can they both go across? Well, you have to know that if you study logic and programming, so I had to program this in logic, Prolog, excuse me, in the 80s. The trick is basically there's a man and a goat and a cabbage. And if you want to make it more complicated, there's also a wolf. And there's only two things that can go in the boat across. And if you leave the goat and the cabbage on the other side while the man goes back to pick up the wolf, then the cabbage is gone. And if you leave the wolf and the goat, then the goat is gone. So this is the internet is replete with these kind of examples from textbooks. And that's, of course, what this network is trained upon. The data from large language models is acquired by harvesting the internet. So immediately, this system starts applying this. So you get answers like the man takes the goat across the river first, leaving the boat on the original side. So, okay. Then the man returns alone with the boat that somehow got across. He leaves the goat on the other side and takes the boat back to the original side. Finally, he takes the... It makes no sense whatsoever. And it makes no sense because there's no access to meaning. It's word correlations. It's trained on data that is, full with these kind of examples, and it just gives it the go based on word associations. Using this professionally or individually can be risky. So this is now known as hallucinations. I'm sure you heard the term. I don't like the term. I think it's, with all due respect for the sales managers here present, sales managers talk. It's not a hallucination. Hallucination is deep, like, oh, gee, sorry, I had a hallucination. Gee, look at me. Having hallucinations, how profound and philosophical. It's bullshit. It's producing bullshit. It's really nonsense. And we have to call it what it is because that makes us alert on the possibility that it's producing bullshit, and we shouldn't rely on it. We should keep it in mind. So we have to learn that we're actually, and I very much like this quote, we have a totally new kind of intelligence. So I like this quote from Pedro Dominguez. People worry that computers will get too smart and take over the world, but the real problem is they're too stupid, and they've already taken over the world. We outsource so much of ourselves that it's really difficult to think that we're still in control. And last week in the Netherlands, where I'm from, we had the elections. And there is huge concern about the influence of AI on the elections, not just because of fake news, that everybody sort of understands, but apparently there's an increased tendency of people to ask their ChatGPT for voting advice. I am almost feeling like I rest my case. I mean, what does that mean for democracy? For the state of law? If you outsource your voting behavior to a ChatGPT? I mean, the risk that this becomes controllable by agents behind the technology has to be taken seriously. Has to be taken seriously. And I remember this occasion, you probably do too, in January 25, when I couldn't help but noticing something really, this tremendous concentration of power at the inauguration of Donald Trump, the new emperor of the United States. You had the captains of big tech with an incredible technological power, communication, information, an incredible financial power. The amount of money that these companies possess and that they get invested with is incredible. An incredible amount of political power. It's the United States of America. An incredible amount of military power. And it was all there. That sort of warns me a little bit when we outsource, when we think about authentic personal development and the relation to AI that is based on big tech from the USA, mostly, we have to be cautious. And so the big challenge, I think, is to think about how we, as human individuals, empower ourselves to enable an effective oversight on this kind of technology. And this is, of course, also in the AI Act from the European Union and in the GDPR. So the first one, in the GDPR, Article 22 says that data subjects, humans basically, have a right not to be subject to a decision based solely on automated processing. There has to be a human in the loop. The AI Act, Article 14, says that high-risk AI systems, which is basically everything in ethics, medical, education, job-related, you name it, so it's practically everything that's really relevant, should be effectively overseen by natural persons to prevent or minimize the risk for human rights. So that means that you and me, as a professional, need to exert that effective human oversight. Are you prepared for that? I doubt it, not because of you, but because me as an educator, I'm a teacher at the university of an AI program of all, we don't really know how to prepare our students for effective human oversight. And you see the developments going faster and faster. We call this cognitive outsourcing. Increasingly companies, and I talk with them regularly, are outsourcing, because it's more efficient, parts of the work to AI. And there is a human on the loop, sort of monitoring if everything goes right. And if the human let it pass, then, yeah, okay. The person responsible is the human, not the AI agent. It's a bit like self-driving cars, you know? You're supposed to have your hands on the wheel and watch the street, which, of course, after 20 kilometers, everybody stops doing because, yeah, it seems to be working. But then if something goes wrong and you didn't intervene on time, you're the one to blame. In the US, they go to jail for that. So we put a burden on people without preparing them. And that's a challenge, I think. And you see this is from Atos, a big company that from France, where I was giving a talk to, and they're really struggling with this. They believe in agentic AI. So agentic AI is basically having a lot of smart agents that more actively than ChatGPT, you know, ChatGPT, you have to ask things, etc. But now these agents come into their own independently of you. If you manage them well, this can be really useful. And they do all kinds of things for you. And you're kind of the orchestrator or the conductor, the director, you know, and you manage this team. But yeah, this makes me worried in a way, especially at this stage. I don't know if you know this movie, The Minions, were in the theater. They're relatively well-intending, not so smart kind of agents. And the whole concept of the movie is that they're basically making a mess of just about everything they do. Is this movie popular here? It's a big hit in the Netherlands, in any case. Several installments. So that's part of the problem. They're smart, but they're not that smart. So you cannot let it simply go. You have to be there. And the risk that I'm basically formulating for you is that you are also a minion. You're this one. You're there amidst your orchestra of not so smart, but normally more possibly useful agents, but you're outsourcing so much of your own cognition and your intelligence that you're dumbing down. I will never be invited again. I realize that when I speak in these terms. But what can I do? This is really a risk, a challenge that I see. Let me explain. There was a very interesting study, a neuroscience study, this year from MIT, where they compared performance and brain activity between three teams, three groups. One group was just writing an essay, questions like, is having more options a luxury or actually problematic? You know, and then what do you think? You write something. And they had to write it just by themselves, just brain. Another group could use search engines, so they could look up information. A third group could use ChatGPT. And what they found was really interesting, so they had all kinds of questions. For example, can you quote any sentence from your essay without looking at it? And guess what? The people working with search engine or brain only could do so very well. The large language-based models, zero. They had written it, but they didn't know what they wrote. in terms of product ownership, that's complicated. If you look at brain activity, I cannot go into the details because it becomes too technical, but you see the same kind of thing. In the brain-only condition, you see a lot of brain activity, sharing information, integrating information throughout the brain. This, I like to say, is sort of the fitness picture of neuroscience. This is your brain training. This is your brain being active. You see less so, but still some, in the search engine condition, and you see the least activity, the least sharing and integrating of information in the ChatGPT version. What does that mean? It means you're not using your brain. And that's a problem. And as they say, it's a bit low, so let me read it to you. External support tools restructure not only task performance, but also the cognitive architecture, which is a fancy word for your brain. Careful attention must be paid to how such systems affect neurocognitive development. And we're not just talking kids or students, we're also talking professionals. If, as an adult, you start relying on ChatGPT in your daily work, or whatever AI tools or agentic AI you're using, you're not using that brain. And the brain is like a muscle. Eh? The story is use it or lose it. So I tell my students, like, if you do a study now with me, and you outsource your essay to a ChatGPT, it's like going to the fitness and having the lifts lifted for you with a machine. You don't get fitter. You're just wasting your time. Why do you think that in a university it's different? Your brain is a muscle. It needs practice. And you pay, actually, in the Netherlands, they have to pay quite a lot to follow the courses. You go to the fitness, you have a subscription, you pay a lot of money, and then you don't do the exercises. What do you think that that's going to get you? Nothing. And the worst is that this is not happening just at student level, but also at professional level. And the worst example, and I'm showing it to you because otherwise you wouldn't believe me, I guess, was the following. I read on LinkedIn, I believe, that there were 20 publications about vegetative electron microscopy. I thought, vegetative electron microscopy, what on earth? I know what an electron microscope is. Vegetative? I thought, this is not true. This is a hoax. So I started searching, and I found 12 publications. And then I stopped searching. I thought, okay, I believe it. It's really true. 12 articles, vegetative electron microscopy, in journals, international reviewed journals. And then it turns out there was an article from the 50s with a 2-columnar structure, but with not so much space. And in the digitalization, this was read. The absolute shamelessness of scientists. And now, of course, we have retractions, or this one is also nice. The authors would like to change vegetative electron microscopy to scanning. Yeah, right. Thank you. I mean, but so this is not just for students or daily life use. This is for highly professional scientists. This is a risk. This is a risk we really have to think about. So what's the answer? I think the answer is education. But then we're sort of in a paradox or in a catch-22. Because what do students do? Yeah, they use AI for their education. You start seeing the problem. We're sort of in the middle of all kinds of machines that we outsource our cognition to, that basically dumb us down. And when we try to educate them, they use the same things to facilitate their learning process. That's a challenge. And this is really, so that's this challenge again. We're really heading here, eh? And that includes me. I'm not, I'm including myself. So the important challenge, and with that last couple of slides I want to close, is critical thinking skills. If you look at companies, what they want from their employees, it's critical thinking. And translated to AI, I think that means AI criticism. So in my own educational program, the bachelor and master program, we have 300 students actually 600 divided over all the years. We have an inflow of around 200 per year. What we teach our students is not to be fan of AI, or we don't tell them how great AI is. They already believe that. That's why they are doing the study. We tell them to criticize AI, to explain the kind of problems that AI has with meaning, with feeling, with the heart, in the hope that that prepares them for responsible innovation, the responsible use of technology. So if you think about critical thinking, then what we have to train ourselves in, and if you have educational programs within your company, and I understand that you're actually quite magnificent in that sense, then this is what you have to learn again. Pose questions. Identify pros and cons. Predict effects, consider alternatives. Avoid assumptions, or at the very least, challenge them. The critical thinking sense, and I think this really requires, in my educational program, a complete overhaul. It's no longer knowing things or being able to do certain things. It's questioning the results that are being done for you. That's the kind of critical mindset that we need to learn. And that's going to require a very big change. Good. I'm finishing with my last slide. This is beautiful Nijmegen in the Netherlands. And I want to show this picture because for me it tells something important about regulation and the role of regulation, whether that's human rights, neurorights, the AI Act, or lots of other rights. Let me explain the problem. This was not an island at the beginning. This was mainland. It was connected. But there was a problem here with these bridges. This is the Waal, one of the many big rivers that enter the Netherlands. We have big problems. We do water management, but yeah, the sea level rises, the country goes down, the water from the rivers increases, and how we're going to manage that in 20 years from now, nobody knows, but we're trying. The problem here was that when the water level rises, the Waal embedding here is actually pretty small. And so the water level would rise a lot. And we had a lot of floodings in Nijmegen in the past, quite substantial, quite serious, also relatively recently. And so what they thought was not, as most people are inclined to think, increase the dikes, put them higher, put more blocks in, a dam, hemming in, stopping, which is the way most people think about regulation. But we actually created more space. We created the bypass. There is now additional space for the water, so that here the water level doesn't rise as much. And it has various advantages, including very nice beaches for students to swim in the summer, and kids, and rowing, and what have you, etc. So this is just to emphasize technology management, whether it's AI or neurotechnology, is like water management. You think about problems, not to block the progress, not to hem it in, not to build a dike or a dam, unless you think it's useful, then you should. But you can also think about creating space to stimulate development in a responsible way. Water management, technology management. If you know what the problems are, you can in advance design better stuff, knowing also about the weaknesses of people. And then I think we have the best of both worlds. So I'm still optimistic. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Pim. Whenever we have got this drawing ready, we'll see how it was all captured. It probably takes some time. We have some questions for you. It's coming.
By all means.
So yeah, we are seeing how it was all captured.
It's looking beautiful already.
Brain data.
Coca-Cola. Well, in your dream,
and you want to Coke.
Yes, sorry.
But the question that has most votes so far is, of course, you are back in like 2031. And what is your expectation? What is the new thing? What do you want to talk to us then?
In 31?
Yeah, like 6 years. This seems to be the cycle now.
Well, first of all, I'm happy to come back. So do invite me. I love it here. But I think... I think it would be more neurotechnology again, this kind of mind meld. So like the smartphone is disappearing. It's going to be wearable. And it's going to be sort of, because I didn't talk about this, but we're going infrared and ultrasound for brain stimulation. And with these wearable EEGs that I did show, you know, it's going to be so easy to have direct computer-brain communication that I think that will open up possibilities and risks that we're currently unaware of.
Yeah,
so that's why the neurorights that is now starting, and I'm really trying to be as active as I can in there, is going to be a crucial part of my activities in the next 5-6 years. So maybe I will be talking to you about that then.
Interesting. I think to some extent you already answered that, but should LLMs be allowed to be used in schools? And what could be the main future impact to the children and humanity from those?
Yeah, no, I think it would be irresponsible not to allow it, but you have to control it. I always say, first you learn how to calculate, then you use a calculator. It's the same with large language models. First you learn how to write, then you discover how difficult it is sometimes to express yourself in writing accurately, like you write. I mean, writing is like talking to yourself. It's like the drawing. I thought that was really a great talk. Like you need to shape your thoughts into something, because we start with communication intention. We have meaning, and we somehow want to give that a shape, whether that's in drawing or in music or in language. That's the struggle, and you have to go through that struggle to understand also yourself a little bit better. If you outsource it from the beginning, you will never find out who you are. Talking about authentic growth. So, but at the same time, and I have a kind of conflict with my own exam committee at the AI educational program. They want to prohibit AI students from using AI. I mean, how low can you go? That's not possible, and that's not responsible. How can they advise on responsible innovation if they're not allowed to experiment with it themselves? But maybe not in the first year. So we have to have not one size fits all, but a highly personalized, developmental kind of implementation. And for your company, if you do training or education for employees, I would advise the same. It is not a yes or no kind of discussion. You have to figure out where it can do good, where it hurts.
So we have to wrap it up. I see so many good questions here. And I will only ask the one that I think is like the most general one.
All right.
But a precise one. Like you have to come up with 3 answers to one question, and that is how to differentiate AI from human. And then we can...
You mean in conversation, or...?
How you differentiate that? So that you don't... Probably it's a new Turing test that you have to figure out now, like 3 of them on a spot.
Okay. I don't think there is a waterproof way. You can be lucky or unlucky in discovering through conversation, like the cookie example, you know, the chatbot that I gave. I couldn't believe my ears how fortunate I was that in the first conversation I got such a wonderful answer and such a stupid answer. So, and this is the challenge for human responsibility and effective human oversight. You don't know when they're going to mess up. There's no pattern in there that I have discovered. Like the one with the logical puzzle, the boat and the goat, etc., that I can kind of predict because I know enough about the data that they're trained on to sort of think, okay, that might be risky. But the elephant in the room, where does that come from? So the funny thing is, maybe this is not 3 answers, but it is trying to go to an answer, that there's an interesting field in trying to understand why, for what particular reason, the AI messed up. It's a bit like, I mentioned alien already, huh? It's a bit like an alien species. So I'm going with pension soon, as you know. And I want to write about AI as a mirror, a laughing mirror of ourselves. The funny thing about AI is we try to build it while we still don't completely understand what our own intelligence is or where it comes from. And so we see reflected certain aspects, the smartness especially, and other aspects completely not. And so in this interplay with this alien intelligence that we created in our own, in a way we could try to understand ourselves better. and what we share with animals. That's actually so important that we're forgetting too easily.
If I can interpret that into some kind of at least one method, is that they are less ashamed of their stupidity than we are.
Winning or losing doesn't matter to them. They have nothing in that sense.
In a game.
It's all meaningless. It's a very sad state to be in, if nothing ever matters. For us, little babies, they already care about stuff immediately, and they will let you know if they don't like it. That's something that living organisms have and that AI completely misses.
But yeah, you have not had a chance to draw all of that, but Kati has a full book.
That's going to be very helpful.
That will help you to draw.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pim.
It was a pleasure.